quite a while in the United States, we've used different months to honor different communities and their heritage. Many of us as teachers feel like we need to use these months to honor these cultures. The question arises, though, does this approach benefit students or harm them? Say, for example, we're in Black History Month, and we as teachers feel like we need to search for information about Martin Luther King Jr. or Rosa Parks. Or if November comes and we feel pressured to find information about Indigenous Americans and their heritage, what do we do? I'm sure that we as teachers have good intentions, but we have to question if that practice of going month by month is really benefiting our students. Research shows that it might not be. Banks and a colleague said that this type of curriculum standard is not helpful, and that teachers often are aware of this fact. When we focus on this month-by-month approach, we pick heroes and holidays for different communities. And that might be an easy approach, but we have to consider if the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. Oftentimes, we pause our regular curriculum to interject these types of celebrations on a monthly basis, which can make students feel like the other. We often also focus on standardized heroes in each of the communities that we focus on. For our BIPOC and LGBTQ students, their experiences might not be reflected in these standardized heroes. Students from these communities may still be struggling, and yet we heroicize these models. Often we receive pushback for changing the system, with schools saying that this has worked in the past. Instead, we may want to focus on highlighting these cultures throughout the year, so that students in the BIPOC and LGBTQ communities, who are already marginalized, can feel like this is part of our standard curriculum. By picking standard heroes and holidays, we continue to marginalize these students. It may be difficult for teachers to find resources in their libraries or elsewhere. And in the first year, I remember thinking, wow, I finally made it. But looking back in the summer at the books that I compiled, the authors and the characters, I realized that they were mostly white, but my students came from a variety of backgrounds. I was following this month-to-month curriculum and realizing that it wasn't doing much good. Many of us teachers are familiar with the Common Core State Standards, and when we're uncertain of how to teach, we can follow the Common Core State Standards to get on the right track. They serve as a type of GPS for the way in which we should teach. An organization called Teaching for Change is one that I have attended several of events. And I learned there about the social justice standards. These are written by an organization called Teaching Tolerance, which is itself a project of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Just as the Common Core state standards focus on 4 main areas, reading, writing, and both types of expressive and receptive language, the social justice standards focus on 4 areas: identity, diversity, justice, and action. In the first area, identity, students use their language, culture, and history to develop their identity. In the second area, diversity, students look at the diversity in their communities and the culture, history, and politics of those identities. They get comfortable with talking with people of other cultural identities. In the justice section, students learn to recognize justice and injustice in the world. They go to events that may support people of different levels. And in the fourth area, action, students learn to empathize with others so that they can get over their biases and be part of the community. So the question then arises, how can you change your curriculum? Let's focus on one unit. In the social justice standards, remember Unit 3 is justice. The first step is to select reading material. Sims Bishop emphasizes picking books in an important way, books that either become mirrors or windows for students. What I mean by this is that students can either see themselves in a book, using the mirror analogy, or using the window analogy, can see how someone else's life is different than theirs and recognize their own privilege. In this unit, I picked a book called The Hate You Give, or THUG, as an acronym. This was written by Angie Thomas. The book is a story about a main character, a black girl by the name of Star. She witnesses the police killing her best friend Khalil. And the story focuses on police brutality and action. You can develop goals and an essential question for these standards, and especially in the justice unit. In section 12 of this, it talks about asking students to recognize unfairness in the systems around them and how people can be marginalized by it. This relates to our essential question, which would be, would Khalil receive justice? There's no right or wrong answer to this question, but it prompts students to discuss the possible answers to this and be creative in their ideas. Ultimately, this supports an anti-racist education. The American School for the Deaf is proud to sponsor the National Deaf Education Conference, which has created the NDEC Signs and NDEC Engage series this year. During the pandemic, we need to be creative and thoughtful about how we reach our communities, and NDEC has done that for our instructors, administrators, and parents. Thank you. We don't just give students the books and ask them to read. First, we develop an anticipation guide. We want to know what students bring to the reading exercise ahead of time. We want to know about their biases, their assumptions, and so on. So in this anticipation guide, we find questions and images that will fit our students and ask them to fill it out. This includes statements like, why are people poor? Is it because they're lazy? Do you agree or disagree? And explain why. Once students have completed this anticipation guide, they come back together and participate in a classroom activity. We show the same prompts and ask them to split into sides of the room, agree or disagree, and have a discussion about that. At the end of their reading, we come back to the same guide so that students have an opportunity to assess whether their perspectives have changed or stayed the same throughout the reading assignment. This helps students recognize their knowledge gaps. We also focus on increasing background knowledge. The way we do this is giving students the opportunity to watch documentaries, for example, 13th by Ava DuVernay, or a documentary called Deaf in Prison, which has been created by an organization called HoH. We invite organizations to our school so that they can learn about innocent deaf people who have been put in prison. We've also invited artists to come and give talks. For example, a Black artist who has focused on police brutality, Jason Reynolds. We also encourage students to watch The Daily Moth or read news on a website called Newsella. The Daily Moth is online news, and it's in ASL. Newsella provides articles at reading levels that fit our students. Third, we ask students to engage in some research. We provide them several topics, and they'll pick one. For example, to research the Black Lives Matter movement, the Black Panthers Party, or code switching. There are other topics as well that they can research. Once they've picked one, they develop their own guiding question. We provide them feedback along the way so that when they're ready to do their work, they can do it and then present their findings. We finally get into the reading section, and this is when students can get into their books. We give them 3 weeks to do this, and we remind them of that essential question. Would Khalil receive justice? Their reading responses generally look like something called a book snap. This was developed by somebody named Sarah Martin, and when students find a page in the book that really resonates with them, they're asked to take a picture of that page and use the Snapchat app to add stickers to that picture. They can then post it to a Google Slide activity and we can discuss. Next, we do post-reading writing. We ask students to engage in an argumentative essay, again focused on our essential question. Their evidence is meant to come from the reading, from the documentaries that we've shown them ahead of time, and from news articles or videos that they have read or watched. This all comes back to our essential question: would Khalil receive justice? Finally, we ask them to engage in a creative process, where they take everything that they've learned and create something new. For example, slam poetry project. We've asked one student to create slam poetry focusing on oppression. young adult characters help engage students in dialogue about identity, power, privilege, and bias. And oftentimes the script is flipped, where we as teachers become the learners. Topics like discrimination, oppression, police violence. Students have a lot to talk about on these topics, and I've learned a lot from them and what they've seen in the world. I think they are ready to engage in these types of conversations. I hope you can see how these units will engage in the social justice standards and how you can implement them in your classroom. As a result, students engage more in reading. They learn more about the world and make a connection there. This helps them become more active in their communities and in their schools. Some of them may not feel ready to tackle these types of things, and they would prefer that month-by-month curriculum that we've talked about before. As their teacher, I try to engage them in discussion, and I thank the BIPOC and LGBTQ communities and the white community for working together on these projects. I think we've seen very clearly that our intentions can be good, but that's not enough. The time is now to act, and the time is now to change.